Happy Hump Day, folks. What's going on? Welcome to Fantasy Football Today. Yeah, we have got the Trust-O-Meter today. No more trade talk because trade deadlines have mostly passed, but we'll still look ahead, rest of season players. How much do we trust Christian McCaffrey, Deshaun Watson, Damien Pierce? A good one, Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore. These are all listener suggestions, so we'll talk about those situations and how much trust we have in those players. We'll also look ahead to 2023 and give you some ideas to change the scoring in your fantasy league, some fun ideas to make fantasy a little bit more interesting. Oh, good morning, Heath Cummings. How are we today?
Fantastic, Adam. I see that we have a Twitter poll right at the start of the show. I'm always excited about your Twitter polls and what they bring out into the show.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I had a little bit of a revelation this morning, and I don't like admitting this. I'm really seeing the wisdom in the see results option, and I almost put it in the poll. I almost did, but I'm not quite ready to admit defeat yet. So,
okay,
what is that wisdom exactly?
Well, because there are some people following me that have no opinion on the poll question, and they should have the opportunity to see the results without voting in the poll, and if they do vote in the poll just to see the results, then it skews the results. So, right, Heath, is that how you'd sum up?
That was almost perfect. Yes.
Heath, how often is see results more than 10% of the final vote?
I don't know that. I guess the better question is, how often is see results bigger than the difference between the two options?
Okay, because I'm just wondering, like, if see results is less than 10% of the people who actually click on the damn thing, then I don't think the results are really going to change that much.
But how often do I run polls and people say, thank you for the see results option, or Adam runs polls and people say, where is the see results option?
Yeah, I never really get that. Guys, some people troll me with it. All right, anyway, let's go to the poll. This is the moderately bold statement to start the show. Tell me, agree or disagree, Travis Kelce is the number one pick in 2023. Oh, wow, the results are surprising to me.
He would be if Father Time was not undefeated.
Maybe he'll be the one to defeat Father Time. I don't believe that, no.
Like, if he was 27 or 28, 100% he should be.
Showing any signs of slowing down.
Right. So I don't know if that's the argument.
Be 34. He just turned 33 like a little while ago. So
he's without a doubt the most valuable player in fantasy this season.
So who is, like, right now, if you're looking at the screen, if you're looking at youtube.com/fantasyfootball today, how many votes? 344 votes. 75% disagree. The question is, or the statement is, agree or disagree. In PPR leagues, Travis Kelce is the number one pick in 2023. And I would have hit agree, but disagree is at 75%. Also want to point out that this is Thomas Schaefer's Twitter that we're looking at, and hashtag sex is trending for him. So that's a little bit weird, but I'm just reading the screen. So who, if not Travis Kelce, who's number one right now?
It's a great question.
Justin Jefferson.
Jefferson, you could make the case for. You could make the case for Eckler.
He'll be 28. I don't think there's any way a 28-year-old running back's going to be number one.
I still think he can squeeze out at least one more very good year. One of these other younger running backs, we might be able to make the case for. Are we sure we're definitely not going to take Taylor at number one overall next year? Not ready to say that won't happen.
Let's do this. This is fun. Who are the running backs who are under 25 for this season? That means they won't turn 25 at any point during this season. Who are in the top 12 currently?
I don't know if there are that many.
Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs is the...
And we don't know what team he's even going to play on.
Mixon? How old is Mixon?
Mixon is 26.
Taylor is probably not in the top 12 right now. You're going on points per game?
Just points.
No, overall points? And hell no, he won't be up in there.
I have no idea. I'm going to say just Josh Jacobs.
Ramondre.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And Taylor wouldn't be if we were going points per game. If we were going points per game as well, you would add Breece Hall, but nobody's going to take him number one coming off an ACL.
No chance.
Is
Pollard in there?
Pollard, this is his age 25 season, and we don't know what team he's going to be playing on next year.
Yeah, it's a tough call. Eckler is 27, and he and Derrick Henry are both top 5 running backs right now. And they are, trying to become the first running backs at this age. Are they 27 or 28?
Henry's 28.
Yeah, they're trying to become the first running backs at this age to finish top 5 in like 6 years. So Eckler's already and Henry are already going to defy time a little bit. And Eckler's not like, I know he's old-ish for a running back, but he doesn't get that many carries. So perhaps that preserves him a little bit. It's not like he's getting pounded every week. And this is now his second straight year in full PPR, averaging more than 21 PPR points per game.
I wish we could have one of those charts that show, like, they have them for the all-time NBA leading scorer, and it shows who's first, and then over the years, this person comes up and overtakes them. I'd like to have one of those charts for this year of who would be the 2023 number 1 pick throughout this season, because it was definitely Jonathan Taylor at one point. I would say it was absolutely Saquon Barkley at one point.
No, I never. Who is saying that? Barkley
he was 25 and he was the number 1 running back in fantasy.
I don't know. I never really felt that momentum that he was the number 1 overall pick for 2023, because he's not quite young enough either. I think you want someone going into their third year or something like that. Ideally,
we've not had, when was it? Yeah,
Taylor. You want someone like Taylor.
There is not someone like Taylor.
I don't think there is.
There almost was with Hall.
Yeah, Hall could have been that guy. And like if one of the other rookie running backs managed to play better, like if Damien Pierce hadn't have smashed himself into a wall, or if Kevin Walker wasn't, struggling so badly and having a poor rushing average, then maybe one of those guys could get into the conversation. Here are the 2 things that people look for. There are 2 trains of thought with the number 1 pick. Number 1, that somebody wants somebody who's a running back that's going to be dominant and put up 25 fantasy points per game. We've already made clear there isn't that guy. The other train of thought with the number 1 pick is the safest, like, bust-proof player, regardless of position. That's Justin Jefferson. If I had to make rankings for 2023 right now, that dude would be number 1.
All right. Well, it could also be Kupp. That was another guy, Heath, that at one point for a while, it was just, okay, the Cooper Kupp should have been the number 1 pick.
He'll be a first-round pick. He'll be right back in there.
And he'll be 30 next year, right?
Yeah, but we don't. Do you ding him that much for that? He's a receiver.
Let's see what his health is like throughout the offseason.
If he's coming back from a high ankle sprain, then I'll be okay with it. It's not an ACL.
Man. Look at this. You guys agree with this? How about this comment from Zach? Adam is by far the worst Giants fan ever. Shows no love. Is sent. I think that's especially with what they've done this season against all. Come on.
Well, you know why?
Why?
Because I've even stopped with my teasing you about being a homer, because Dan Schneider came on board and showed us what a homer really is. Like he is outshining you as a Giants fan in so many different ways. And now you do look like someone who just doesn't really care that much. You're like Dave with the Bears now, because
no, I love them. They're not that good. I've known they're not that good. People don't want to accept it. Lost 3 of their last 4.
This is a good thing to talk about, because I'm updating my dynasty quarterback rankings today. And like I made a comment last week about how Dan seems really certain that Daniel Jones should be their quarterback next year. But all Giants fans see, like I made a comment that Saquon Barkley could get franchise tagged. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, so does that mean they're giving Daniel Jones a contract extension?
Yeah. So first of all,
why does Daniel Jones have to be the quarterback for the team next year?
Schneider does not like Daniel Jones. He just thinks that the best solution, they're not going to have a high draft pick.
But no, I'm talking about Giants fans in general. I made the Schneider joke. I'm not talking about him now. I'm just talking about, like, it seems like the assumption is Daniel Jones gets to be a starting quarterback again next year. I can't imagine why.
I think we all thought that they would have a very high pick, and it's not happening. Dave's losing interest, so we can get back on track here.
There's been plenty of times when Dave's been talking, and I just sat here and listened.
It's true, Dave. You know what? I'm going to take Dave out of the, I think I might remove him. No, I won't do that. No, just from a dynasty standpoint, I actually think there's a little bit of potential if they get a good receiver and stick with him. But anyway, let's go. Let me tell you about the last day for you to get a 30% discount on a site-wide sale at store.cbssports.com. Use the promo code CYBER. Receive 30% off your entire purchase from the CBS Sports store with the code CYBER at checkout. Promotion starts on November 28th, 2022 at 12 a.m. Eastern and ends on November 30th, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. All orders must be from the CBS Sports store and added to the cart from the URL beginning with https://store.cbssports.com/. Promo code must be entered at checkout in order to be applied. Promo codes will not be added automatically. Promo codes cannot be applied retrospectively by you or our customer service team. Promo codes are not valid for online gift card purchases. Promo code cannot be used with sale or charitable items. So basically, I said a lot of stuff there. The point is go to store.cbssports.com and use the code CYBER for a 30% sale site-wide off your entire purchase. It's awesome. This is the time to do it. Let's go. All right. And injuries, news, and where the hell is Dave? Dave, come back. What happened? I think he had to actually step off for a second. All right. News and notes. Any running back updates, Heath? Like trying to find, a Najee Harris, Michael Carter. I see the Jets signed Jonathan Ward to the practice squad, so maybe they're anticipating Carter being out. But any updates on the waiver wire situation?
I have seen none. Those two in particular. And I wrote about this yesterday. Like, it has the potential to be the biggest disaster of a running back waiver wire week that I can ever remember, because it's like it's not even just that Zonovan Knight or Benny Snell could get supplanted by the guy who was the starter. It's that there are other guys who we don't even know if the starter's out, if we know for sure who the starter will be. So I'm not putting much fab on those guys, but if you had to have a running back, you have to take a shot because they do have top 24 upside if the situation falls in their lap.
I saw some crazy fab bids for Zonovan Knight. Like 35 to 45% of original fab.
That's really that crazy?
I think that's a lot for a guy that's not guaranteed to be. What would you say? A multi-week starter in fantasy?
The only argument is at this point in the season,
right?
If you don't spend your fab, you may never use it.
I'll tell you. Let's see. In our podcast league, Benny Snell went for $16. We started with a $100 budget. Zonovan Knight went for $5. Wow, that's a good get there.
Wow.
Yeah. And in our 10-team podcast league, we got Njoku for $1, Heath. Oh, we got Zonovan Knight for $1. This is a 10-team league, so Benny Snell went for $0.
It's amazing.
Wow. All right. So
are people still paying attention in that league?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's pretty competitive right now.
Do you only start with 10 fab dollars?
People were very aggressive with fab in that league. Fab, just year to year.
It's a 10-team league also.
Right.
There's a chance that Benny Snell starts and is not start worthy in that league.
Yeah. Oh,
fair.
Great. I got
Kenny
Pickett in a league. How exciting. I'm going to have to start Kenny Pickett this week. Just looking at my
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I'm so.
Very optimistic about Kenny Pickett.
All right. One more injury update. Two more injury updates. Three more injury updates. Aaron Rodgers expects to play this week. The Chiefs signed defensive tackle Brandon Williams. They need a little beef up front. And Christian Pulisic expects to play on Saturday. USA! Oh, man, that was awesome. Let's go to the Trustometer. Christian McCaffrey is first up on the Trustometer.
10.
Obviously.
Next.
The knee?
I'm starting Christian McCaffrey. 100%. No doubt.
10.
It's more of a 9.
9's fine. Deshaun Watson. He has Houston, Cincinnati, Baltimore, the Saints, and the Commanders in his next 5 games before Pittsburgh in Week 18. Not the best schedule on paper, not the worst. What's our Trustometer level on Deshaun Watson?
For this week, I feel like it's like a 5. You shouldn't want to start Deshaun Watson. The excitement of going with Deshaun Watson, knowing what he's done in the past, should be muted because it's Houston. They should be able to run, and he hasn't played in a long time. So you've got to figure that there will be at least a quarter to a half of rust that he has to knock off before he really gets moving. I think he'll be okay, and I think he'll have some very good games as the season moves on. But I'm not starting him like as a top 10 guy immediately. I'm not ready to do that.
Yeah, 4. I would start him over Rodgers and Brady.
I'd start Rodgers over him.
Rodgers, huh? So Rodgers with the Bears, you'd start Watson?
I would.
All right.
I agree with you on Brady.
Yeah, the Browns, it was interesting because the Browns are usually bottom 5 in pass attempts. They're 18th in pass attempts per game this year and still 5th in rush attempts per game, but they give up the 3rd most points in football.
But they don't this week.
No, right. They are, that's a better situation for Watson, I suppose. They do run the ball a lot, but they're also throwing it a decent amount. And Deshaun Watson has been, on a per-game basis, in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, he has been number 4, and number 6 in his past 3 seasons, and number 6, and number 6 in 6-point per game, 6-point touchdown pass. That's his per. Anyway, top 6. And then in his rookie year, I think he was number 1, but that was kind of a crazy season.
He didn't play the whole year, right?
No, he played 7 games, 6 starts, and he threw for 1,700 yards, 19 touchdowns in 7 games. Is crazy. All right, next up on the Trustometer is Marquise Brown / Rondale Moore.
0. They're not playing this week.
This is the rest of season 1. Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, Trustometer.
It's hard to put Rondale Moore on the Trustometer until we know that he's back, but that's assuming 100% health for him. I would say a 6 or 7 for Marquise Brown and 1 number lower for Rondale Moore.
I think it's scoring specific. I think they're probably the same number in PPR leagues, and Brown would be 1 number higher in non-PPR, and I'm in the same range as Heath on these guys.
What was it again? What was it?
6 or 7.
For both of them?
Or 5 or 6.
Let's call them both 6s in non-PPR.
Full PPR.
And 7 from Rondale in full PPR.
Boy, it's so interesting because Marquise Brown was basically their slot receiver last week.
He was. That was interesting.
And don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to be outside. They've played 12 games. The most yards for the 3rd best receiver on the team has been 55.
Can we count Zach Ertz as the 3rd best receiver?
Yeah.
Okay.
I looked at the number 3. I looked at the top 3 receivers just by yards, not by fantasy points, because there are touchdowns obviously involved. But top 3 receivers in every game, and the most by the number 3 guy was what did I say, 55?
You said 55.
35 range. But as soon as Marquise Brown got hurt, DeAndre Hopkins came back. As soon as Rondale Moore got hurt, Marquise Brown came back. We just have not seen a single game with Hopkins, Brown, and Moore, or even Hopkins, Brown, and Dortch. So it will be interesting. Also, Kyler Murray, did you guys realize he is like 2nd to last in the NFL? 3rd to last in the NFL in yards per attempt this year. Yikes. 6.1 yards per attempt.
I expect he's going to be better if he has DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, and Rondale Moore all healthy.
Are you concerned about James Conner taking more work away, or do you think that volume will still not be an issue? Conner had 25 carries against the Chargers, 14 against San Francisco, 21 against the Rams. That was a win. Like if he's going to be in the neighborhood of taking 15 to 20 carries away, that's a lot
15
of
to 20
work.
carries for sure, yeah. But if they run 65, 70 plays a game, like they usually do.
You think, all right, 50 pass attempts per game for Kyler?
No, 40 pass attempts, 25 rush attempts.
Is that where they've been all year? Is that what their averages are?
They throw a ton. They've thrown the 4th most pass attempts in the game, per game in the NFL.
Kyler's averaging 39 per game. I don't know what their total rush attempts is. I can get it right here.
39 per game is going to be pretty good, And last question here. Any concerns about Hopkins?
How many targets did he have last week? I know he only had 4 catches.
6. Brown had 8.
Yeah.
Weird.
For the season, 39.5 pass attempts, 26.5 rush attempts.
It's pretty good.
Running back rush attempts or rush attempts?
Just total rush attempts.
Total rush
figure
attempts.
7 of those are
Kyler will
Kyler's.
have some of those, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. Obviously Kyler or Hopkins is a must start. I'm not saying sit him or anything, but I think he's wide receiver 6 per game, something like that.
Sure.
What do you expect him to be going forward? Schedule was Patriots, Broncos, Bucks, Falcons, Niners.
He just blurts out 12.
Well, I was just answering the question.
Yeah. You're starting Hopkins, and I think Brown's going to be a number 3 receiver. I think Rondale will be a number 3 receiver in PPR. How often will multiple receivers have double-digit targets? That's what I would be worried about. And I'd give the lean toward Hopkins, but he's coming off a game where he was 2nd on the team in targets.
I mean, if you lower that standard to 8 or more targets, for 2 receivers, then you're talking
Probably more likely.
most games. I think
Sure.
9 out of 12 or something like that.
Right. And so here's the thing. You'll think, all right, someone will get squeezed, and you won't think it's Hopkins. And that's why there's going to be trust issues with the other receivers there.
Would you rather have Marquise Brown or Michael Pittman?
I think I feel better with Pittman.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson or Marquise Brown?
Oh, Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson.
As long as Zach Wilson stays far, far away, go away. Play baseball. Play tennis. Don't.
All right, so we'll see what kind of fit Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, DeAndre Hopkins are for the Cardinals offense. They're not going to be as good of a fit as, ready for this, your Indochino suit. What a segue. Yeah, finding the perfect suit is impossible, but finding a suit that's perfect for you is simple, thanks to Indochino. And I can tell you firsthand, it's awesome. Go to the website, go to Indochino.com. They also have a lot of stores. If you want to walk into a store, you can just look online, see if there's a store near you. But if you go to Indochino.com, that's INDOCHINO, you're just going to be lost in how many awesome things there are to buy and suits to design. So you design all your suits, you put your measurements in, you pick every detail of it, the fabric and the style, the pleats, the buttons, the monogram, anything you want. You customize it to whatever you want it to look like, and it's going to fit you just absolutely beautifully. And are you going to spend a little money? Well, not for something like this. Their made-for-you suits start at just $449. Premium fitted shirts are starting at just $89. $449, I'm not saying it's nothing, but it is really worth it for what you're getting. Plus, we're going to give you a discount, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And if you don't get an Indochino suit, if you don't get a suit that's fitted perfectly for you, you're going to have to spend some money at the tailor. So just pay up the $449, or that's what it starts at for their premium suits, and their fitted shirts start at just $89. Now, you want to get a little bit of money off? No problem. $50 discount to get $50 off your purchase of any purchase of $399 or more. Use the promo code FFT at Indochino.com. That is promo code FFT, INDOCHINO.com. Get $50 off any purchase of $399 or more with the promo code FFT. Back to the Trustometer. These are all from our listeners, by the way. How about Christian Watson? In his last 3 games, he has 265 yards on 10 catches. He has the 6th most receiving yards in the NFL in that span. He's 2nd in yards per catch behind Darius Slayton, I believe. What is your
you're bearing the lead?
What?
He has 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, and 6 touchdowns. And
by the way.
What is your what do you think? Maybe I was going to get there, Your Trustometer on Christian Watson.
I think I'm going to give him a 7. And the reason why I'm going to give him a 7 on the Trustometer is because he's got some of the highest upside of anybody in football right now because of his ability to catch a deep ball for a touchdown or take a short play to the end zone. He's also seen targets inside the 10. He's playing a ton of snaps. He's in an offense that, for the most part, maybe not necessarily this week, but for the most part, will be in competitive games or playing from behind, so the ball will be in the air. For now, he's got a great quarterback, good enough quarterback. I guess he's not quite the same guy. Aaron Rodgers isn't quite the same guy, but I think when you look at him and you can use him as a flex, I think it's a slam dunk. As a number 2 receiver, might take a little bit more guts, but you think about a lot of the other receivers that are on the low end number 2, high end number 3 range that are getting you 12, 13 PPR points per week. You can make the case that Sutton's got, or that Watson, I was thinking of Sutton. Sutton is that 12 to 13 PPR receiver. There's a case that Watson has more upside and that he should be started.
I'm going to do the thing that I do and say that I don't think receivers like Christian Watson have anything to do with trust. It's the Gabe Davis scenario. You can't sit him right now. The upside's too high. You should recognize the floor is tiny. Like, he's getting 6 targets a game when they're throwing 30 passes. They're playing this week. They might throw 25 passes against the Bears or against the Rams next week. And there's a chance that he gives you 5 fantasy points, like Gabe Davis has done multiple times this season. But
I think
the ceiling's too high.
I think if we further examine, though, the targets, I guess I didn't quite realize his target share in his last 3 games, Christian Watson, it's 42%, 16%, which is bad, and 24%. So that's 2 good target share games and 1 bad one. And in 2 of the 3 games, I didn't realize just how few pass attempts they had attempted. It was 20 in one game and 25 in the other. That's a little unusual. Rodgers is usually throwing more than 30 times per game. He threw 39. The concerning one would have been the Titans game, right? He threw 39 passes and only 6 of them went to Watson. But in the other 2 games, Dallas and Philadelphia, he actually had a very good target share. So I am hoping that if the pass attempts are above 30, you could be looking at consistently about 8 targets from Watson. And he's got so much potential to break a big play. He's done it yards after the catch. He's done it by just beating guys deep downfield. Got the 4 end zone targets in the 3 games.
But you do recognize how low the floor is.
Yeah.
Of course.
I think so. I mean, does he get more targets than Gabe Davis? Gabe Davis, we're going to talk about soon when we preview the game, has 1 game all year with more than 7 targets. Is that kind of where you see Watson living at? Or
100%.
Okay. Next up is Alvin Kamara on the Trustometer, 0 to 10 for Kamara. Oh, by the way, funny stat, because you compared him to Cortland Sutton in that 12 to 13 PPR range.
Yep.
Russell Wilson has thrown 8 touchdowns this year. Christian Watson has 6 in his last 3 games. Where are we on Alvin Kamara? Alvin Kamara, 0 to 10, Dave, on the Trustometer.
I think he's at the same number as Watson. I think he's at a 7. He's not a guaranteed must-start running back anymore. He's had 3 straight rough games. Now he's going into a matchup against Tampa Bay. And I'm noticing that he's playing worse as the offensive line for New Orleans gets worse. And so when that offensive line gets better, I'll feel a little more confident in starting Alvin Kamara. A lot of people don't have the choice to sit Kamara because they know what his upside is. But we're seeing his floor pretty regularly here in November.
Real quick, Heath, Dave, I never brought this up. His struggles started the second Eric McCoy got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Their starting center. It was 4 games ago. He played 35% of the snaps, got hurt against the Ravens. This is I want to say Pro Bowl for sure. I'm not sure if he was an All-Pro at some point, but a very good center in Eric McCoy. The second he got hurt, the struggle started. There's more to it than that. I'll get into some of my thoughts, but Heath, your Trustometer level on Kamara.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a 4 this week at Tampa Bay. And then he has a bye. Then he gets the Falcons, Browns, and Eagles. If they come out of the bye a little bit healthier, then I could see him being in that 7 to 8 range as a high-end number 2 running back again. This week, he's ranked in my top 24 running backs, but it's him and Damien Pierce both. I'm just actively searching for running backs who are not top 24 that I could rank over them because I don't want to start those guys.
Yeah. How about this? 12, 11, 16, 13. Those are not his fantasy points in his past 4 games. Those are his touches in his past 4 games. And that seems low for Kamara.
His 67% snap rate last week was his lowest since week 1.
And he left week 1 with an injury. And what happened last week? Mark Ingram came back. So
man.
Well, and he fumbled twice.
He did fumble twice. But he usually plays about 73% of the snaps when Ingram plays. So it was down a little bit, not huge. But we have seen that. We saw that last year where his lowest snap shares were with Mark Ingram. The other thing I wanted to mention was, like, you look at Kamara in the last 4 games, 9.2, 7.5, 12.9, 7.0 PPR fantasy points. The 4 games before that, they were all with Andy Dalton, and he killed it. He scored 17.5 or more in every game. He scored 23.4 in one game. He scored almost 43 points against the Raiders. So what has changed? Their offense has gone in the tank. They're not scoring nearly enough points. And how about this? In those first 4 games with Dalton, they were over 70. They were averaging over 70 plays per game. Let me see. Or no, 69.7 plays per game. In their last 4 games, 51 plays per game.
Well, also, those first 4 games were against Seattle's defense back when they weren't very good. I think, did the Bengals have DJ Reader for that game?
No.
Did not have DJ Reader for that game. Against the Cardinals, who are awful. Against the Raiders, who are awful. The last 4 games have been against Baltimore, Pittsburgh, the Rams, and the 49ers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all factors. Yep.
Okay.
So I think you could be a lot more hopeful after the bye, which is week 14, week 15, Atlanta.
Just hope you're playing after the bye.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So if you can still trade Kamara, it would be a buy low with the eye on what would it be? Week 15.
Week 15.
Yeah. Playoff savior Alvin Kamara.
Okay, last one here is the rookie running backs, Rashad White, Brian Robinson, Damien Pierce, Ken Walker. Who are you most confident in? Rashad White, Brian Robinson, Damien Pierce, Ken Walker.
Walker.
Yep.
Not even a second thought.
White would be very close to him for as long as Fournette's out.
Oh, I mean, you could easily argue that he'd be
next
one, right? If Fournette is out, because he had 9 catches.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, Walker starting to, he has. I don't remember where I brought this up. I think on the box score. Ken Walker, every running back with 80 or more carries, he has the second highest rate of carries for 0 or negative yards.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Robinson's coming off this great game against the Falcons. Let's not forget 2 weeks ago he faced the Texans. He had 15 carries for 57 yards and he had no targets. So what's your trust-o-meter on Brian Robinson? His next 2 games are against the Giants with a bye in there as well.
It's like a 6. Another running back that I'd like to find somebody to start over him. But if I don't have anybody, I'm okay going with Robinson. He's gotten a good workload. You can be a little more optimistic about him after the efficiency spike last week. Giants' run defense isn't dominant.
No,
Commanders want to run the football.
Yeah, I'd start Robinson over Pierce.
And let's talk about Pierce then, because obviously, it's only clouded, I think, by the Cleveland matchup. If he had a bad matchup this week, it'd be so easy to run away from him.
Mm-hmm.
The last 2 games, he has 15 carries for 16 yards, and he has 5 catches for 17 yards, but faced 2 defenses that have done very well against running backs, Washington and Miami. Now he gets the Browns. So, Heath, I think you're probably trying to stay away, based on everything I've heard, you're trying to stay away from him anyway, Damien Pierce, but let's talk about him this week against the Browns.
He's a 4 or so. He's a high-end flex still, just because it's hard to discredit everything he did before the last 2 weeks. It's just the last 2 weeks have been so miserable, and they've talked about how opposing defenses are just daring them to pass. They have decided, we are not going to let Damien Pierce beat us. We bet your quarterback can't either, and they've been proven correct. But it is a good matchup, and the Browns could, with Pierce and with the Browns, it could be one bad run fit from the Browns, and Damien Pierce houses it, and it was a good day.
Dave?
I'm nervous about starting Pierce because of how he's played. But there is a scenario that could play out where he is the main back and there is no Rex Burkhead. Daria Gumbawale, who kind of stole a short yardage touchdown last week from Pierce, ends up playing in the passing downs role. I don't think they want Ogunbowale to take much work away from Pierce. I'm a little encouraged, and I think the Texans might view this game as their pseudo Super Bowl. They're getting their former quarterback back. Everybody in Houston's going to be paying attention. They're buzzing about it. My dad, who doesn't pay attention to football as much as most people do, first thing out of his mouth was yesterday when I talked to him on the phone, how bad is Deshaun Watson going to kill the Texans this week? And so I told him what I thought was going to happen, which is like 225-2. And he goes, don't be surprised if the Texans step up to take him down. Like he just, I don't know where his mind was at, but he's hearing about it and he stays home all day in Galveston. So I think the Texans defense will be motivated, and I think the offense will be too. It would not surprise me if Damien Pierce was a number 2 running back this week.
Before we take a break and talk about the Patriots and the Bills on Thursday, are there any other players that you are losing trust in, gaining trust in, that you want to talk about? Open-ended question there, sorry.
There are.
Yeah, there's a lot for me. I think that whole... I think when you talked about Garrett Wilson being the wide receiver 20 or top 20 guy, I just think there's so many wide receivers in that range that I have trouble trusting on a week-to-week basis, mostly because they're playing with bad quarterbacks. And it's Wilson, it's Olave, it's Pittman, it's guys like that. And I think, it's hard to have enough wide receivers where you can sit them. But
yeah, I mean, two guys that come to mind that have gained trust over the last couple of weeks are David Montgomery and Chris Godwin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, Godwin.
Those are great calls.
Why Montgomery? Why Montgomery?
Because he's getting the touches, and he just ran fantastically against the Jets, and now he's facing the Packers and the Eagles, who haven't been any good against the run. The last time he played the Packers, he had 136 yards on 17 touches. And that was back when he was sharing with Khalil Herbert.
Right. Herbert being out has been great for Montgomery.
Sure. Right. Yeah, what happens if and when Herbert comes back. It's so easy to trust Montgomery now, but what happens if there's another guy there?
Obviously, it's not going to be a good thing, but we'll jump off that bridge when we get to it.
He only played 68% of the snaps last week. So, like, the way he's
Which
playing
is what
right
he was
now,
playing. Honestly, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Heath, but that's what he was playing with Herbert, too.
Yeah, but he was getting he gets almost every carry now. Herbert was getting, probably 8-10 carries.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, thank you, Heath.
Darrington Evans had 9 carries last week.
Oh, did he? I wonder if they were garbage time.
No, they were not.
No?
No.
But 2 weeks ago, I don't know. I feel like I'm right about this, but not super confident in that.
2 weeks ago, Treston Edner had 6 carries.
Yeah, see? Told you. All right, we can take a break now. Let's get into the Thursday game. We'll come back and take a look at the Bills and the Patriots. Do we have a good defense in this game? It's kind of a week-to-week proposition there. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Okay, David, it's time for Thursday Night Football. Nah. Buffalo is at New England. Stat of the game. Gabe Davis has more than 7 targets only once this season. There have been 2 wide receivers all year who have scored 12 or more PPR fantasy points with 7 or fewer targets against the Patriots. That is an excellent number compared to some other teams that I looked at, including Buffalo. So very hard to do well with 7 or fewer targets against the Patriots. Maybe Gabe Davis will have more than that, but that's only happened once. So that's something to keep in mind. We'll get to him as we go along. First question is, Josh Allen is coming off a 34-point game, but he did have a season low in yards per attempt. I think it's fair to say he did not look right. Tony Romo was talking about it throughout the game. He was not right. He has not been right since the elbow injury. He's practicing in full, so maybe getting better. Any hesitation at all on Josh Allen?
Nope.
Not even a little. He's my number 1 quarterback.
Okay. Devin Singletary, 8th starter sit.
I would rather not start Devin Singletary.
Same.
He's a flex-ish. If he scores a touchdown, he'll be fine. But it's a great run defense.
All right, how about Damien Pierce or Devin Singletary?
As much as I dislike Damien Pierce, I've got him higher than Devin Singletary.
Dalvin Cook just ran into this defense on Thanksgiving night. He had 9 PPR points.
Yeah.
They've been outstanding against running backs all year long. The only DST that allows fewer fantasy points per game is San Francisco.
Yeah, in their last 4 games, the Patriots are allowing 2.37 yards per carry to running backs. All right, so you can sit Singletary. You can try to get away from him. The Bills wide receivers, I know you're going to start Diggs. Dave McKenzie versus Gabe Davis. Who do you like, and how much do you like him?
I have Davis ranked higher, but it's almost by pedigree more than anything else. I am going to make a case for McKenzie as a sleeper in this week's lineup decisions column. I love what I saw from him last week. He had 10 targets. Half of them he was the first read. And so you might think to yourself, oh, that means that he kind of got a little, fortunate a little bit to see 5 extra targets. He found ways to get himself open and make himself available for Josh Allen. And it really worked out. His speed was great. Now, you're playing against the Lions secondary, so of course you're going to look good against those guys, but he was getting open, and Josh Allen was finding him. And I think about how the Patriots' defense is. They're great against the run. That should mean that the Bills are going to need to throw in this game. They're going to need somebody to take some of the pressure off of Stephon Diggs. Is it Gabe Davis, who isn't getting a ton of targets from week to week? Or is it McKenzie, who can get open on crossing routes and post routes and corner routes and find ways to make himself available to Josh Allen like he did last week? I think he can do it again. And he had a season high in playing time, season high in targets. I'm definitely rostering Isaiah in a bunch of my leagues. I'm starting him as a flex in leagues where I'm a little thin at wide receiver this week. Hashtag Isaiah is back.
Okay. Where are we ranking Gabe Davis this week, guys?
I'm really concerned about the matchup and how good they've been against wide receivers. So this will be a rank him at 25th instead of 24th or 23rd week.
I've got him even lower than 25th. And
I think it's a real mistake to try to predict Gabe Davis.
No, I think you just have to call him what he is. And Heath, you've done an amazing job of calling him that since like March. You've been on top of this. So following your lead is pretty easy to do.
But when he goes bad, and that's the point I'm trying to make. When he has a bad game or two bad games, I don't think that's relevant to his next game. He always has the upside to be a top 10 guy. He always has the downside to be a outside the top 50 guy.
Mm-hmm. And how good are the Patriots against wide receivers? They're sixth best against wide receivers. They haven't shut down good ones, really, though. I mean, they did a good job against Amari Cooper. He had 4 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown on 12 targets. They did a great job against Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he barely played. Michael Pittman, who had Sam Ehlinger as his quarterback. So most of the good receivers that have faced them have done quite well. And in fact, the Patriots have now allowed 37 completions of 20-plus yards, and I think they allowed 38 all of last season. So they are going to eclipse their season total from last year of 20-plus yard completions allowed. Not air yards, just completions, this week, and that's crazy. So, I think their defense got very much exposed and has it several times this year when they face good offenses. I'm assuming you guys think the Bills will be able to score, quite a bit this game.
I do.
Okay. Starter sit Dawson Knox.
I would try and get away from him.
He's in that range of tight ends who are going to need to score a touchdown. The Patriots, oddly enough, have not been very good against tight ends this year. He's a borderline top 12 guy. I think he's probably a little bit tied to Isaiah McKenzie. And there's not going to be very often that he and Isaiah McKenzie are both good in the same week. But I'm not as moved by McKenzie's game last week as Dave is, which is probably why I'm more optimistic on Knox.
Can I tell you what I saw 2 games ago from the Bills?
Yeah.
A lot of 2 tight end sets. They were playing against Cleveland. They recognized that Cleveland stunk against the run. They ran at Cleveland. This was the game where I think they had 29 carries between Singletary and James Cook. And so Knox ran a lot of chip routes where he's blocking a guy and then he turns around and Josh Allen flings him a ball. It's also when Josh Allen was first coming up with this elbow injury. I think it was his first game. Remember, leading up to the game, we weren't even sure if he was going to play. I think this was the first game. It might have been the second. But last week against Detroit, it was a completely different plan. They wanted to throw on Detroit. I think that's the plan that they're going to go with this week, and that means that Knox will still run a decent amount of routes, but Heath's right again. This is somebody that's going to need to score a touchdown in order to be decent for fantasy.
Okay, so Njoku over him?
Yeah.
How about
Tyler Conklin over him?
All right. I think they're back-to-back for Heath. Gerald Everett or Dawson Knox?
Knox.
I would go Everett.
How about Cole Kmet? Without
would...
knowing who the quarterback's going to be by Thursday.
I'll still go Kmet.
Oh, you're not really feeling Dawson Knox. Okay. Heath, I see you have Tyler Higbee ranked ahead of Knox. I want to point out he Dan made this point last night on the live stream. He barely ran any routes. Ran 11 routes last week with Perkins at quarterback.
I've struggled with that because we saw that a month ago. Tyler Higbee barely ran any routes, and then a week later he had 8 targets.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's a quarterback thing though, because they just had a different type of offense with Perkins.
They did. I just don't like. We've talked about this a lot over the last 4 or 5 years with Sean McVay. He is a guy who changes philosophy and roles regularly throughout seasons. Guys do this in one game and then do something completely different in the next game. I just kind of feel like you have to look at it as more of an average of what they have done, knowing that the upside exists for one and the downside exists for the other. The other thing is that Tyler Higbee obviously has one of the second best matchup for a tight end.
Yeah. Okay. What's his upside, though?
That he gets 8 more targets?
He hasn't scored a touchdown this year.
I understand, but that does not mean that it's impossible for him to score a touchdown.
Yes, that's true. But how many end zone targets? How many red zone targets? And he's already not running routes, much less getting targets.
I don't think just to be fair to Heath, I don't think he's making a strong case for Tyler Higbee here.
Okay.
There are 6 good tight ends in fantasy football.
It's that
we're going to rank Cole Kmet as a top 10 tight end.
Yeah.
Cole Kmet could score 4 points tomorrow or this week. It's an awful position.
I think if the Rams go to Wolford, I think there's a decent amount of upside here for Tyler Higbee, specifically in PPR. Remember when they had Wolford a few weeks ago and Kupp got hurt in the fourth quarter, you saw 4 targets after that from Tyler Higbee. I'd like to see him go back to a passing quarterback and not a rushing quarterback. Okay, let's go to the Patriots here. You guys are sitting Mac Jones coming off of his best game. In fact, the last 2 games, just something to keep an eye on. Mac Jones has averaged 9.1 and 9.8 yards per attempt. That is terrific. That was against the Jets and at the Vikings. He averaged 6.8 yards per attempt in his first 6 games. So encouraging signs there for Mac Jones, but sitting him this week. Start Ramondre Stevenson. Is he in your top 5?
Yep.
Yeah, he's incredible when Damien Harris doesn't play. 19.2 or more PPR fantasy points in 4 of 6 games without Damien Harris, or with Harris playing 24% or fewer of the snaps. Okay, Bills' run defense also been a little suspect lately. Starter sit Jacoby Myers.
I'd flex him in PPR. We have seen offenses lean on their slot receivers against Buffalo over the past 4 weeks for sure. I don't know about the balance of the season, but over the last 4 weeks, they've allowed some pretty good numbers to slot receivers. And earlier this year, we talked about how Jacoby Myers was playing more out wide, and that's true. The majority of his routes have come in out of the slot.
Okay. Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, Jacoby Myers.
Myers first, Gabe next, McKenzie last.
See, in terms of a projection or a floor, I do think Myers over Gabe Davis. I can't look at my lineup and think of the possibilities and put Jacoby Myers in and put Gabe Davis on the bench because I might be leaving 25 fantasy points.
How about Paris Campbell or Jacoby
FOMO.
Myers? I guess easily you're going to go with Myers over Paris Campbell.
Yeah.
How about Mike Evans or Jacoby Myers?
Evans.
Even if
the
Lattimore
exact same
plays?
thing I just said about Gabe Davis.
What if Lattimore play? What if Lattimore practices in full on Thursday? Because he never does well. He pretty much never does well against Lattimore. You're still going to go with Evans?
I will definitely go with Evans in non-PPR and half PPR. If we're guaranteed Lattimore to play, then maybe I'd go with Myers in full PPR.
Last one, JuJu Smith-Schuster at the Bengals or Jacoby Myers against the Bills?
JuJu.
Oh, boy.
JuJu
A lot to get to on JuJu. When we noticed some very interesting things last week with JuJu. All right.
He was a part-time player last week.
Mm-hmm.
He was, but he was also a slot receiver last week. Played 68% of his snaps from the slot, which has not been a good thing for him this year. That's a season high, by the way. So, anyone else? Hunter Henry, Nelson Aguilar, anything like that?
I really want to react to that.
Oh, we can. Let me just finish this game.
Okay.
And we're pretty much done. Bills DST. They really have not been great lately. The Patriots have been a good matchup lately, but do you try to get away from the Bills DST or you stick with them or what?
I'm sticking with them.
I'm not making a roster move.
Right.
Okay. If you could roster 2 DSTs, would you start the Seahawks against the Rams or the Bills?
I would stick with the Bills.
If I have a dead roster spot and literally no one else that I'm interested in stashing is available and I can get the Seattle defense, I'll take the Seattle defense.
All right. More on them in a moment. Dave, that is it for Thursday Night Football.
No.
You want to get into JuJu real quick?
Who else would they have played in the slot last week? Tony was hurt. Hardman was hurt.
They could play Sky Moore there. Moore played about 50% of his snaps from the slot, I think. JuJu played 68%. But there's just a bit of a trend. In the 4 games where JuJu has played more than 40% of his snaps from the slot, he's been terrible. I'll take last week out because he only played 38% of the overall snaps. But he doesn't get targeted that much when he's in the slot. He gets targeted a lot more when he's on the outside. He also only has 1 game this season, I think, with more than 8 targets. And that may have been the game where Mahomes threw 68 passes. I think it was. So I'm a little nervous about JuJu. He's in that group of 20-ish, number 20-ish wide receivers that can have bad games. He's not immune from that. But I don't know what happened with the snap count last week. I don't know what that was about. I don't love the fact that he played mostly in the slot. I hate that. So yeah, what would you like to say about that?
I just did. That they didn't have anybody else that they felt comfortable enough with to play in the slot, and that's why he was there. It could
As
be that
opposed to
he's
when?
there again this week.
But when wouldn't he be though? Because
when they've got somebody like Tony or Hardman back.
Hardman, okay. Yeah, all right, fair enough. Because Tony hasn't been there much, but Hardman.
Or when they gain confidence in Sky Moore and they've seen enough from him where they say, okay, he'll play them. Look, JuJu will play some snaps in the slot every week. That's just the way things are in the NFL. Every receiver does that. But when Sky Moore gets the majority, that's when you'll see JuJu out wide again.
Let's read a quick round of emails here, and then we'll give you some fun scoring ideas to implement next season or to just laugh at. From Austin, why is Heath so much lower on the Seahawks DST than everyone else? Bucks or Seahawks this week?
I'm pretty sure I have the Bucks higher, right?
Yeah, according to Austin, it's very low on the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think I've got the Seahawks 10th. They're not very good, I don't think. And I don't know, like the Chiefs scored 13 points against the Rams last week, but I don't think the way that Perkins played quarterback is going to lend itself towards a lot of DST fantasy points because he ran so much. But they're fine.
From Jake in a city in northern Minnesota.
Lake Minnetonka.
We have Sydney, Bernard, Mike, and Greg.
Those are former Vikings receivers. Sidney Rice, Bernard Berry, and Greg Lewis. I don't know the Mike. They've had a lot of Mikes.
That's pretty good. I got offered a trade DeAndre Hopkins for Olave and Njoku. No. I got offered to trade Hopkins for Olave and Njoku.
Hold Hopkins.
Yeah, don't do that. From Michael, is it worth stashing Darren Waller at all?
IR spot, yes. No IR spots, you do not have to.
In general, what are your expectations for Waller when he comes back?
Not high.
There'd be a 7th tight end that I would start every week.
Yeah, there's that, but it would be based on, past performance, not based on what would happen. Is there going to be a guaranteed rush of 8 targets going to his mitts every game? I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if he's coming back. Raiders don't have a ton to play for.
From JP Faulkner, any chance we see a healthy serving of Jordan Mason rest of season to preserve Christian McCaffrey?
I'd say like a 35% chance.
I would say a 33% chance. I think like there's a 33% chance for Ty Davis-Price and a 33% chance for Tevin Coleman.
I think
we don't know which guy's
is more likely.
Guy. Maybe.
I think Mason plays over TDP when they have enough running backs because he plays special teams.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's do some fun scoring ideas. Fun scoring ideas for next year, maybe. Just some fun. Dave had a crazy idea that I just smashed out immediately, but you can go ahead and give it. It inspired this segment, Dave. So what was your crazy idea?
Imagine that during the football games on Sundays, when you're watching with your buddies or at work, at home, wherever you are, you can vote on who the MVP of the game is. And whoever is the fan-voted MVP of the game will earn extra fantasy points in your leagues. If you have that setting set. Obviously, this isn't something that we would make mandatory across, CBS premium leagues or anything like that. But you get an extra few points if your player is the MVP of the game.
And
I'll give you an example. Who's voting?
Yeah.
Any registered CBS Sports user. But say the idea gets adopted, it could be you could vote on ESPN's site and Yahoo's site, wherever.
Okay.
But anybody who has a Pulse and a Wi-Fi connection is a voter.
Okay, so the example was?
Benny Snell was the MVP, in my opinion, of the Monday night game. So I would go on to my app and who's the MVP of the game, and there's choices, and you plunk in who you think the MVP is, and you get a thank you for voting. And then when the game ends, the votes are calculated. MVP is named. Whoever started Benny Snell that week gets a few extra points.
It would make Mahomes more interesting because he's going to be the MVP in so many games. Heath, I don't think you like the idea. You remember, it's an optional one. You can opt in.
Yeah, I'm going to opt out.
I get it. I understand completely.
Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about that.
No, look, we were just having fun, but it did inspire this segment here. So I really support the idea of picking spreads. And for every spread you get right, you get a certain amount of points. For every spread you get wrong, every pick you get wrong, you lose that same amount of points.
I dislike that also.
Why?
It doesn't have anything to do with my fantasy football team or the players that I selected or the choices I'm making. It's some completely other thing, entirely separate from the game that we are playing. You know what you could do? You could have a contest where everybody picks the games and the person who picks the most correct wins.
You could combine everything in one.
You could call it a pick'em contest. You could host it on CBS Sports.
Yeah, how fun would this be, Heath? Okay, you pick spreads, right? And as many as you want. You want to pick 5 games. They're each worth 3 points. You have the potential to gain 15 points or lose 15 points. You're going into Monday night. You're down by 2 points. Nobody left to play. Well, all of a sudden, hey, this happened to be one of the games that you picked, which you have to do earlier in the week, by the way. This happened to be one of the games that you picked. So now you've got a lot at stake. It just adds more excitement. It adds more at stake to the game, to your fantasy matchup. It's a great idea.
This is a good time to say I am also in first place in my You Won't Win CBS Sports Football Pick'em contest.
Okay, see? You should be doing this then.
No, I don't. I hate this.
No, I mean, obviously, the spirit of fantasy football is to get points based on what happens on the field, not based on who the general public thinks the MVP is, not based on who your picks are. It's fun to think about these things, but it's really not. It's not in the spirit of the game. But there are ideas that we have that are in the spirit of the game.
Okay. Well, I was going for the more offbeat stuff, but if you want to go for the ones that are in the spirit of the fantasy football game, go ahead.
The first one that I would say is that first downs should count. In fact, I like first downs more than a catch. Think about a screen pass that a running back or a receiver gets that goes for negative yards. You get a point for that. That's kind of lame. But if you get a first down, well, that's something that actually helps the player's team. It's moving the chains. It keeps a drive alive, etc. I think that first down should replace PPR. I also think that.
Oh, can I have a follow-up real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you do about quarterback rushing first downs? Do you count those?
You get a point for that too. Yeah,
that's a huge deal.
Wait, are you counting quarterback passing first downs?
No, you'd give that to the receiver.
I think I'd give it to the receiver before I give it to the quarterback.
What's the difference between that and a passing touchdown? They both get
What's
it.
the difference between that? Yeah,
passing touchdown, they both get it.
But not yardage. The yardage doesn't count the same for both of them.
Doesn't count the same, but they both get credit for the yardage.
Okay, so you want to give a little point to the quarterback and a big point to the receiver?
This would have been quarterbacks like 1,000-point scores.
I think if you do that, then you definitely have to make sure that your league is 4 points for a passing touchdown.
If you're fully replacing PPR with first downs, you're creating an even bigger gap between running backs and wide receivers.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Because they're going to have a lot more first downs than wide receivers are.
Mm-hmm.
So
are they?
Yeah. The good ones, they have
the good running backs that catch passes
250 carries and 50 catches. That's 300 opportunities. You can generally look at it as about 5% of your touches.
Hold on.
As a rule, go for first downs. So it's a big difference between 90 catches at most or 100 catches.
Right, but wide receivers average a lot more yards per catch than running backs per carry.
But running backs average more total yards than wide receivers.
That's true, too. So here's the solution. Replace PPR with points per receiving first down.
Per receiving first down?
So no rushing first downs at all. So what you just said about quarterbacks getting credit for rushing first downs doesn't count.
Now that's out the window. You want to keep you're telling me that we need to keep it weighted to make wide receivers and tight ends more valuable and pass catching running backs.
We don't have to. There can be leagues where you just take quarterbacks in the first round and running backs in the second round and wide receivers and then tight ends. My favorite is half point per reception, half point per first down.
Why?
It's just a mix of both. It does balance it out a little bit for the wide receivers and pass catchers.
Do I get the half point for first down for quarterbacks?
I would do half point for rushing, yes. I think for passing, I'd probably do quarter point. I also like what Scott Fish has done in the past, what John Bosch has done in the past with completion percentage. Basically, I believe, I'm probably going to get it wrong now, but basically it's a penalty for a pass attempt, but a reward for a pass completion. So if you throw the pass attempt and it's incomplete, then you lose points. But if you throw the pass and it's caught, then you gain a lesser amount.
It's honestly
right. Like it's getting a little complicated.
We got to keep things simple for people.
No.
Yeah, we do. That's why you
don't have
are
to
not
do the fishbowl.
idiots, and none of these are all
not idiots, but it takes some of the fun. Like the Scott, Scott Fish might be watching right now. I do love the Scott Fish Bowl. I do play in it. I don't really get into the weeds of all the scoring because it's just a little bit too.
And you're doing very well. Maybe you should try that more often.
I have a basic understanding of it, but I think that you could paralyze yourself by trying to guess, the completion, like this and that. Jalen Hurts isn't going to be good in this category. Like, just draft the best players. I think what you want to do is just have a setup where you just are drafting the best players without having to game it for, he's the best in this.
Right. I think factoring in more things like that though helps you get to the draft the best players.
I mean, I guess
like if the complicated thing is telling you more who is good and who is not, then you don't have to get into the weeds on it and figure out what trick somebody's playing on you. You just have to draft the better players.
I think if you ask the casual, if you ask the casual fan to start taking into account completion percentage, it might backfire. Might make things a little bit less fun. They just want yards and touchdowns.
But I'm good with it in the fishbowl because I trust Scott to come up with a scoring system that makes everybody fair.
Gamble, Heath, make a spread, make a pick against the spread. That's what casual fans.
We've got MVP voting. We've got betting against the spread. Yeah, people just really want yards and touchdowns. We don't want to complicate it.
Well, that's not complicating it. That's just easy stuff that you could do. Easy. Oh yeah, -6.5. Sure, I'll take it. Like that's. I'm just trying to make things easy.
I'm trying to project who the fans are going to think won the MVP of the game.
No, you don't change much with the MVP thing.
Right. Plus the MVP isn't going to give you like 25 points. It would give you like 3 or 5 points. It wouldn't be that huge of a deal.
I've got a couple others.
Okay.
Me too. Go ahead.
You should get points for return yards. All yards should count. You should get points for all touchdowns. Return touchdowns, fumble recovery touchdowns, any type of touchdown that someone might score. A touchdown is a touchdown. Yards are yards. You should get points for tackles, whether it be on special teams or saving a touchdown on an interception. And you should get negative points for yards lost on sacks for quarterbacks. Take a 15-yard sack, that's a -1.5.
Then you have to do the pass interference thing. You have to give points for drawing a pass interference.
Why?
That was one of mine.
Yeah, because you're gaining. That is such a valuable play. If you gain 40 yards on a penalty.
But how is that related to anything I just said?
Well, I think losing the sack yardage and gaining for pass, like if you're penalizing someone for losing.
The quarterback's not getting the points for the pass interference yards.
No, but somebody needs to get the points for that. The quarterback. Well, the quarterback could. The quarterback. Why not? Why not give the quarterback? You don't give him. You maybe a half it. Right, like if it's a 50-yard catch or a 50-yard penalty, you give the receiver 2.5 points. You give the quarterback 1 point when ordinarily he'd get 2 if it had been a completion. Dave, thumbs up.
To which one? Heath gave like 4 things.
No, the pass interference thing.
I'm talking minimal points for that. That's like a point for that.
Well, okay, Heath. Fine. Talk about Heath's things. Talk about the return yards. Which I would quit the league instantly with return yards.
Why?
I played the return yard league. It was the worst league I ever played in ever. I hated that league.
Why?
Because then you are drafting Josh Cribbs in the first round. You are taking players that should not be, that fantasy relevant. They become fantasy must starts because they return kicks.
You're only saying they should not be fantasy relevant because we've completely ignored that third of the game.
That's not a third of the game.
We haven't completely ignored it.
It's how many plays? A tenth of the game, maybe? Special teams plays? Like, it is not a third of the game.
Right.
It is weighted way too much if you start giving points for return yards. It's just not a significant enough part of the game.
It's the same in the yards.
It's not. No,
the goal is to go from this point to this point. certain yards don't count more, except for the last one that goes into the end zone.
You've got to
going from from your own goal line to the 30 is 30 yards.
What's the scoring?
Yeah, it can't be 1 for 1. It can't be it can't be 1 for every 10 return yards.
I think you can have a discussion about that, but I don't know why those yards are less valuable.
because I think you're going to get to the point where
there
you
are
are
not
playing
2,000-yard
fantasy football,
return men.
and you're starting players that we would never start in fantasy, and they become more valuable.
That's because we
guys who are
overlooked them.
playing 100% of the snaps.
Nope,
When
nobody's
special
playing 100%
teams-
of the snaps. That's a gross exaggeration.
98% of the snaps. You could have a wide receiver who plays every snap, like Marquise Valdes-Scantling or something. Well, he's a bad example.
Okay,
You can have
you know
Gabe
what?
Davis,
Good.
who's on the field all
there
the time.
Are dozens
and
of return men I would rather start and reward for their production than Marquise Valdes-Scantling.
I would, but you're going to end up starting them over Gabe Davis, and it's just silly. Why?
No, I don't agree with that.
Can you guys even name who's leading the league right now in kick return yards?
Nope, that's my point, and I don't want to. No, actually, I do. I should know that. I don't know that, but I don't want those guys to be mega fantasy relevant.
He's got 2 W's in his last name.
Warwarrell Watterson.
Very close. It's a team that Wardero used to play for.
No, who?
Kene Nwangu.
Oh.
Leads the league, followed by Kelshawn
How many yards does he
Nixon.
have?
620.
620 yards.
Through 11 games with a touchdown.
So that would be 68 fantasy points. He would.
I don't like where you're going with that. So
he would be producing approximately 5 fantasy points per game. Running the game of fantasy football because Adam has to draft him in the first round now.
Wait a minute. Can I get in some ideas?
There are a lot more touchbacks than there used to be back in the Josh Cribbs.
Yeah, they're going to take kicking out of the game eventually anyway. So, like 5 years from now, this will be like an ancient discussion.
Go ahead.
In my day, they used to return kickoffs.
Can't believe we have to draft Kene Nwangu in the first round for his 5 fantasy points now. It's so disappointing.
And you might even get some extra points because he could be the game's MVP. Receiving touchdowns should count for 5 in full PPR instead of 6. You are giving too many points for a receiving touchdown.
What?
In full PPR. You get the point for the catch and the 6 for the touchdown. It's too much.
I don't have a problem.
Mr. Running Back, nobody's touchdown should count as much as the guy who takes the ball at the 1-yard line and falls down into the end zone.
Pete Prisco has been begging me to turn that into like a 3-point play instead of a 6-point play.
Dave wants to make it 10. He's a running back.
He hates that those goal line carries count for 6.
He is a very forward-thinking guy.
He really is, actually. Kickers should be included with DSTs. That's something I've brought up to our product development team. I'm continually banging the drum for that. I think that would make DSTs more fun. Home field advantage in the fantasy playoffs. My son is actually in a league that does this. They award 5 points to the better seed in every playoff game.
Ooh, 5 points. I give the tiebreaker to the better seed.
I agree with that. That's one that we've established in our leagues.
Wait, Heath, great question here from the chat. Do you get a point for catching the ball on a kickoff in PPR?
That's not a reception. No.
He's catching the ball.
But if you did,
you lose
Sky
points
Moore
if you
would still not have very many points because he never catches the kicks. He just drops them on the ground.
Oh, sure.
I'd like 1 point per seed difference. So if the 1 plays the 6, then you can have your 5 points. If it's a 2-3 matchup, then it's just 1 point.
All right. I'm ready to go here. Good show. Heath is ruining fantasy football with those 5 points per game for Kenny Nwangu. And thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We'll talk to you
who's
tomorrow.
third in kickoff return yards?
Who?
Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah. Right. Right. All right. All right. We gotta go. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.